Hey guys, welcome to Punky's Pro Wrestling. This is a review of this straight shooting series with Christopher Daniels and AJ Styles, my two favorites. Again, I just want to show you the weird way this thing opens up. To put the disc in. This took place on 2/25/06, and there is a match at the end of it. Christopher Daniels and Xavier versus Loki and AJ Styles at Revenge on the Prophecy in West Mifflin, Pennsylvania on January 11th, 2003. So, their first match, of course, was the 53rd NWA anniversary. And Christopher Daniels at first wasn't happy because, once again, he was putting somebody over, and he had put a lot of people over recently. And he's like, wait a minute, I'm putting another guy over? But he's not a local guy. I didn't think I'd be putting him over, but it turned out for the best. They began hanging out outside of the ring at TNA when they were there every week, and they became very close. Now, as far as the X division goes and the Ultimate X, you know, the ropes with the belt in the middle, that was actually, that came from the brilliant mind of Don Kellis. He's a brilliant wrestling mind. Has been a manager, was a wrestler for a minute. He trained with, at the same time, in the same class with Chris Jericho and Lance Storm, and they all became friends. Don has a brilliant mind for the business. Like I said, he was a wrestler for a minute, but he became a manager and he became a backstage heavy hitter because he was so good at what he did, and he came up with Ultimate X. He gained a lot of respect. And as mentioned, he's been a good friend with Chris Jericho for many years. Ultimate X was tough physically because holding onto the cables was hard because you were tired and you were sweaty, and things they wanted to do they didn't accomplish up there because they couldn't hold on the way they wanted to. For instance, Chris and AJ were supposed to both fall with the belt. In the one where the ref gets knocked out, Chris steals the belt from AJ and makes it look like he got the belt, even though AJ pulled it down. They were supposed to both fall with it, and Chris was supposed to grab it. But they could not, for the life of them, both stay up there at the same time. So Chris finally stayed down and just let AJ grab it and stole it from him. Probably a better heel move. At the beginning of their first 30-minute Iron Man match, they both made mistakes, tripped up on moves, and they're both saying to themselves, what are we doing? But they were, because they're such pros and have been doing it for so long, they were able to cover it. So we, the fans and backstage, didn't know that they ever made a mistake. So, which is really cool. And the fans in the audience didn't know they made a mistake. So, Unbreakable. That's so funny. It ended up a 5-star match with a giant blunder in the middle. If you don't know that match, you're not a wrestling fan. It's when Joe, AJ, and Chris first did their three-way for the X Division Championship. It was the main event of Unbreakable 2005. And Joe went for the finish because there were two spots that were similar, a spot and the finish. Well, he went for the finish spot. He was a little confused. And they said you could hear the shouting match. It was terrible. But again, they were able to cover it. Only them and the referee knew what was happening. The referee was like, you got 10 more minutes. And we're like, oh, no. We got to think of something on the fly. And thank goodness they were all pros and they all knew what they were doing. And were able to think on the fly. And came up with a finish on the fly. After 10 minutes of, in their words, nonsense. Because yeah, so Joe was going home at 10 minutes before they were supposed to. Whoopsie. Oh, Chris and AJ had a 60-minute match in PWG, which is Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, biggest indie in California. And, you know, Chris grabbed a drink from someone and took a drink, and they were on the outside of the ring. So AJ decided to do the same thing. With one problem. Whatever AJ grabbed was booze. He said it was a vodka or something in there. He said, and immediately realized, oh no! He said, I thought I was going to throw up through the rest of the match because, man, that was strong. Especially for someone like AJ who does not drink alcohol at all. To get a gulp of alcohol like that was like, whoa! He said, my head was spinning there for a second. He said, but I thought I was going to vomit because I just took a swig of it without realizing it was full of alcohol, like vodka or something in it. And man, so that's kind of funny. Oh, here's a funny one. So they went to Korea, South Korea, and had a match with a Korean rookie. It was a three-way match. They don't usually call much of their matches beforehand. They don't really have to. But for this kid, they were trying to call it, and the kid was a disaster. The kid was half lucha, and he didn't know what he was doing. They said you could hear, Chris said you could hear me yelling at him, what the F are you doing? It was terrible. And one match in Ring of Honor with Xavier and Chris teaming, not the one that was shown on the video, another one. Chris didn't realize Xavier had gotten kicked in the head hard. Xavier didn't know where he was. Try and tag the wrong person and just and Chris again, what the F are you doing? Get the F over here. He said, everybody had to have heard it. He said, and so he and when I got back, he's like, Xavier, he said, then someone comes up to him in the locker room and says, you realize Xavier doesn't know where he is. He had a concussion. He had gotten kicked legitimately in the head and didn't have a clue. Immediately, Chris felt like a big old pile of dung because he did not realize that. And during the three-way, I forgot to tell you, there was a kick from Samoa Joe. Or no, a knee drop. And Meltzer writes, that sure did look real. And Christopher Daniels said, that's because it was. He nailed me. Those things happen, and you can't get mad over it. You know? In wrestling, they have a thing called receipts, which means if you basically it comes from an old expression payable, you get a receipt. And what that means is if you hit somebody, you're going to get hit back. So if you actually land a blow, you're going to get a blow. Wrestlers expect it. It's part of the deal. AJ doesn't believe in receipts, but if you continuously hit him and land blows, then you're going to get hit. So, but him and CD have an understanding, and it's an unspoken understanding because they don't know why they do it. But they beat the crap out of each other. And so they have fun. I mean, it is fun for them. They, I remember one match where it was CD and Frankie against the Young Bucks. It was an indie show, but it was taped, so I got to see it on YouTube. And whatever person was supposed to measure the distance or make sure the distance between the barricade and the ring apron was wide enough to be safe did not do their job or mismeasured or something. And Chris did his Arabian to the outside, as he does in every single match. He flipped, and his shins came smack down on the barricade. The Bucks caught him. They're holding on to him like, what the hell do we do with him? There's no room. And you could see the looks on their faces was like, well, what do we do now? So they put him in the ring. And they knew he needed a break. So they wrestled to a point where they could get him over to tag Frankie without being too obvious about it. Once he got out of the ring, shaking his legs off, one of the people from the building came up to him, was talking to him, and he knelt down on the apron, was kind of leaning toward the person, talking to them, and I think they just felt absolutely horrible of what had just happened. I would love to ask him about that. Would love to ask him about that because, first of all, it had to be painful, but the Bucks saved his hide because had he fallen to the floor like that, it would not have been good. It would have been much worse. But they knew as soon as he hit that they had to catch him. And then they're running around with him with looks on their face like, what do we do? There's not enough room to do anything. And I'm sure they weren't happy. But they're very close to Chris and Frankie, so it was easy for them to toss them in the ring and go from there, you know what I mean? They didn't even stop him from tagging Frankie once he got close enough because they knew he needed to. He needed a minute to, holy bleep, what just happened, you know? So, but I would love to ask him about it or hear somebody ask him about it, because, man, that had to be horrible. So, and I saw AJ slip off the ropes as a heel when he was in the Bullet Club. They were doing some indie shows in between Japanese shows. And it got such a reaction from the fans that he did it again on purpose. I don't think the first time was on purpose, because the ropes were wet. Actually, they weren't wet. They had very shiny, slippery tape, rather than the regular tape that you see around the cables. Excuse me. So yeah. You know, CD is retired. AJ is getting ready to retire any day, and he apparently has a belt right now, which I was not aware of. Tag team belt, so we'll see. Um, when so yeah. I think that was a fabulous DVD. I wish it was longer. I wish that it had been done later, so more stuff could have been in it. I hope they do another one when AJ retires. Now that Chris is retired, maybe sit with Chris Van Vliet, because he's awesome. So. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining me. I try to do one every weekend. It doesn't always work out that way. And just a side note, John Cena officially had his last match last night on Saturday night's main event. And I guess he lost and people were not happy. He tapped out to Gunther. You know what? He's passing the torch. That's what a man of honor does when he's leaving. You know, for anybody to be bad about that, you do the right thing. I'm sure the company would have preferred him to go out winning, but that's not John. And that's not any wrestler who believes in the business, who wants, you know, to pass the business down. That's what you do. You pass the torch. So. So hopefully Gunther will take that torch and run with it. He certainly has all the ability in the world to do it. Physical ability, the ability on mic, It was a good choice. So, in my opinion. Let me know what you think. And hopefully they use Gunter in that way. You know, that he flies away with it. Because he's already been champion. Let him come back and be champion again. And, you know, he deserves it. Like I said, let me know your opinion. I am going to say goodbye. God bless you. Please subscribe. We're trying to get to 50 by April 9th. We can do it. We made our 30 goal. Bye, guys.